Hi, and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our VFX core skills for beginners. So we've done a lot of prep work so far, and we will still be doing some more prep work until we start doing some more of the creative stuff, but that's just how it is. You'll be surprised actually how much is actually done before the actual creative side of VFX. But the more you have an understanding of this, the better your projects will be because you can plan for it. So we've gone through and we've done our photograph HDRIs and prepped all our stuff and organised all our data. So one of the most important things that we need to do now is set all the layout correctly in the right scale for our shot. And this means getting our exported scan into the right scale, right orientation, and making sure everything is close to real world scale as it is. So it's 1:1. And this will help with lighting and modeling and making everything look more realistic. Because if your scale is off, it's one of the most common things to make something look not very real is having a mismatch of scales. So if your scale is correct from the start, things are gonna start to look great straight away. And it's a collection of these small little things in VFX that really will make your work stand out. So in this one, we're just going to go through and prep the layout. There are two types of layout. There's creative and technical layout. This case is mostly technical layout because we're making it more physically correct. And we can do a small amount of creative layout, which is basically going to quickly do a rough model of the bird box. But yeah, mostly it's technical layout. Creative layout's more for like full feature animation and some full VFX shots. But mostly for plate VFX, it's going to be more technical. But yeah, I'll stop going on. So I hope you guys have been enjoying these tutorials. I know we're starting to get more into the actual 3D side of it, or the more creative side, I guess. But hang in there, we'll get through it, and you'll be doing shots like this in no time. So I hope you've enjoyed these tutorials so far, and enjoy this one that's going to happen right now. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. So I've got Maya open here, and you don't have to use Maya for your 3D application. You could be using Blender, Cinema 4D, Houdini, 3ds Max, and multiple others that I can't list off the top of my head, but I'm just using Maya because it's just what I use all the time, and I've gotten so used to using it. I use it at work, and yeah, it's a pretty good all-rounder. And we're just going to be doing layout. So the first thing that we really want to do is you can always check your what scale settings your scene is in. It's usually always centimeters, but it's always good just to double check. So I've just gone to just go to Windows, Preferences, and you go to Settings, and you can see we're in centimeters and 24 FPS, which is fine. And this should just be your standard, so it's always good just to double check. So I'm just going to go File, Import, and I'm going to go to where we exported out our scan. And if you didn't export out your scan, don't worry, you can just download it from in the description. So I know it can be quite, if you're only doing this on a laptop, it can be, you might even still be processing it now. So you can just download this, so you don't have to go through the time of waiting for it. So I'm just gonna import in my OBJ. This might take a little bit of time because it's not a huge, we did decimate it, so it's not quite the 32 million polys. I think it's only about 5 million, but it will still take a little bit of time to sort of import in. Hopefully it shouldn't take too long, but yeah, I hope you guys have been enjoying these tutorials. I'm planning on doing this sort of project-based tutorials from now on, so yeah, hopefully it'll be quite good fun. Anyway, so we can see just straight from our export from Metashape, our scan is coming at kind of like not a really useful angle and probably the wrong scale. And this is just how it comes in if so I don't have the Pro version, I just have a standard version, and I'm pretty sure you can set it to come in at the correct orientation, but for the sake of not spending a lot more, this is quite easy to do. So what we can do, we can go to shading and turn on our hardware texturing, and this should load in our textures, because we now see our textures, and we can sort of see it's a bit fuzzy because our renderer viewport will be set to 2K, and we can kind of leave this. If it depends on what computer I have, you might not be able to do this, but I like to just max it out, and it should max it out as a 8192. I'm just going to regenerate and reload all tiles, and it should now, we can see that our textures are much high resolution, although it's not at the maximum. I don't think you see it full. Actually, no, I think we did export it as an 8K map. But anyway, so we've now can see our textures, and we need to get this in the right orientation and right scale for layout. So we need to change this, but how would we do this? So the reason why I also leave the Macbeth chart in shot is not only because I can figure out the colors and stuff like that, and do a match grade, but it's also my scale reference, because I know that each of these cubes, squares, is 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters, so I can instantly see I can get the correct scale. The first thing that I probably will do is I'm going to scale it correctly first. So what I'm going to do, you can use the measurement tools, but I find it just simply making a plane, and I'm going to change this to 4 by 4. And now that's 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters. I'm just going to turn this grid off. And simply I'm just going to select my scan. If I press insert, I can change my pivot point. And I'm just going to hold V and snap to the grid. And you can do this multiple ways. This is just the easiest way for me to get the scale right at first. And I'm just going to hold V and snap it to one of these corners. Hopefully there's a vertex in there. Oh, there's one right there. Cool. So we've now changed the pivot point to roughly where the corner is, and we know that this is 4 centimeters. So I'm just going to hold V, snap up to that cube, plane, sorry. I'm just going to scale this now to this 4 centimeter cube. It's not a cube, it's a plane. I don't know why I keep saying that. Fits nicely in one of these boxes. Just keep scaling, and I want to get this as close as I can. Obviously, if you have, it depends on how many people you've got with you. I do all this stuff by myself, so I need to limit the amount of equipment that I bring, even when it comes down to carrying like a meter rule. I don't really want to be carrying that around if I know that I can do it this way. So it really does depend. If you've got extra people to carry stuff for you, go ahead, get a meter rule. It's probably the easiest way to do it, because you can just visualize it a bit easier. And, well, I know that you can get this details online, but you can find out how big the squares are on their website. But I also measured it as well, so I know that these are 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters. So I'm just gonna try and get this as close as I can. Cool, and I think it's pretty close. That looks like 4 centimeters. I mean, if we can, let's hide that, and even we can go to create our measure tools, distance, and if you hold V, it should make a locator there. It'll obviously snap to the vertices, or we can change it to polygon. But we're at 4.05, which is pretty close, and we can see it's off here, so we're in a good place. So I'm just going to undo that. So now, if we turn on our grid, we can see that we're in a wacky orientation, which is not great. So I'm just going to delete that plane because I don't need it. And now I'm going to create this plane. I'm just going to scale it up. And this is just going to be my orientation plane. So I'm just going to rotate this around. And I'm just going to try and align it to the floor. And for the sake of this, I want my tree to be at the origin. Just because it makes life a lot easier when your main sort of shot starts at the origin. And obviously we're not going to be able to get all of this ground because it's undulated and bumpy, but we can get a pretty good average just by rotating it and getting a nice good coverage. So I'm just going to adjust that so that's kind of in the center of the tree. So now we've got this plane, and you can rotate this around, but I find the easiest way is to select the photogrammetry, middle mouse click, and drop it under the plane. So now that's a parent of the plane. So if I go to my translations in my channel box editor, we can just go to our rotates, select all our translations and rotations, and just press 0. And now that's zeroed it out under that parent. So I'm going to select my scan. Then I'm going to press Shift, or I'm going to hold Shift and press P. And now you can see that this has removed it from that parenting, but also carried along the translations and rotations of the edit. So now it's been placed in that position, which is exactly what we want. But the next thing that we need to do is, if we just delete this plane, we don't need it anymore. Our problem is now that we've got these translations and rotations on, and the scale. So if someone accidentally moves that, like, are you going to remember that? You're not. It's very bad practice to leave that on. So what we need to do, we need to freeze the transforms and zero all this out. So if we select this sort of snowflake here with a 000 on there, that's going to freeze your transforms. Or you can go modify, freeze transformations. And if you look over here, this should zero. We'll just select it and we'll do it here because it's in the poly modeling tab. So if we select that, these should all zero out now. Cool, and it has. So we can go to our attribute editor. There shouldn't really be any history on this, but we can delete it anyway. And you've got one here, you've got center pivot, which we don't actually want to center the pivot because then that's going to center it up here. What we want to do, we want to go to modify and reset the transforms. This now means that the transform is right back at the origin, and we have got all our translations and rotations zeroed out and our scales at 1. So if someone does accidentally move it, you can go, whoa, that's something wrong. Something is wrong here. I can just go to 0. And same with scale. If someone's accidentally scaled it, it happens. Trust me, it happens all the time. Someone does, it's easy to click on something, but you can just go, hold on, there's something wrong here, and put it back to 1. Because it's easier to remember all zeros and scale 1. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the technical sort of layout sort of side. Yeah, we've pretty much set it up, and there's not really much else to do. We've prepped it all. We can probably actually, what would be a good idea is actually to go to Windows, because you can see here, you think it's named this, but this has actually got a namespace from the previous import. The actual name of this geometry is mesh. So if we go to, and we want to remove this, so we can go to Windows, General Editors, and go to Namespace Editor. And you can see we've got 2 namespaces in there. Maybe I might have imported it in twice. We can delete that, and we can merge with root. And now we can see we've got no namespaces on it, and it's just called mesh. So now we're going to rename this to bird box scan v01 go, We're just going to call stuff geo that we don't want to render. Then stuff that we do want to render we'll call mesh. So we can search for so if we need to look for something that we want to either don't want to render, we can just type in geo, or if we want it renderable geometry, we can type in mesh at the top. So I guess the next thing that we want to do is probably save this. So, or we can export it. So we can get file. Do we actually want to? We can make it as a reference. It won't matter for now. We won't go into referencing. We just want to keep it simple. So if you save this now, yeah, you're pretty much done. I've got loads of other saves of this. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the sort of technical layout side. We actually won't do more creative layout until we've done the camera track, because it makes more sense to do it then so you can see it. Trying to think if there's anything else we've missed. We could have, if this was high res, we would have probably made a low res geometry of this, but we don't need to because we've already decimated it. Because we can actually see we've got quite a low res here. Cool, so we're pretty much done. So I won't go on anymore because I'm just probably nattering on. I'm just talking mumbo jumbo. But yeah, we're pretty much done for the technical side of layout. We've got it all orientated in a decent orientation, all at the correct scale. Yeah, so the next thing would be to actually export this as an OBJ for Matchmove. I forgot about that. So if we go File, Export Selection, and we're going to go back out of Onset. We want to go to, let's just do it in the photogrammetry. No, let's make a new folder called Layout. And we'll call this Bird Box Scan V01. And we'll actually put layout on it as well, so we know that's the layout version. Because we need to use this one for Matchmove, because now everything's going to be done to that. And some people don't, a little bit confused why we do this. It's so that, like, if you're working on it by yourself, it's fine. You can do it in almost any order, but when you're working in industry, you're not going to be working by yourself. People are going to be waiting on things, and they'll need the layout pretty soon, or quite earlier on in the pipeline, so people can work on this. Then everything else has to work to that, basically. So just going to export that. And it might take a while because it's quite large. So that's just for our tracking layout. But yeah, other than that, we're pretty much done. Don't forget to save it under your layout. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, and look forward to starting on the next one. So hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.